Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So there has been an active topic happening now after Kabam Mike has left the company, and obviously there are some people who took it as good news. There are some people who are very upset about it, but it has sparked a discussion, and I decided to weigh in with my 2 cents because there's a very logical reason as well why the layoffs are happening in the gaming industry, and there are actually several of them. And whilst it absolutely sucks and it is a very crappy part of the deal, especially in the gaming industry, but in much of the corporate, well, businesses in general, and I'll try to kind of perhaps break it down a little bit as well. But in general, this thread has been getting quite a lot of buzz now, because should Netmarble be allowed to squeeze Kabam like that? Should we as a community do something about it? Well, the problem is aside from killing the game, I don't think there's much that we can do, because, well, maybe somebody can correct me on this. All in title, we complain every day, Kabam this or Kabam that, but in reality, they're not. They are doing what they can with what they are dealing with. Granted, some of these moves are not really pro player. Potion deal for Saga Incursions, looking at you, but eventually we all love the game and people making it. And that's absolutely correct. I criticize the game as well, perhaps more than other content creators or many of the other content creators, but that is because I do wish this game to do the best it can. And in this case as well, simplification of the game has to come as a part of it. I'm not necessarily talking about community management team, but I do think MCOC, and therefore by extension also the workforce Kabam has, is effectively bloated. If you look in the game, we have specific calendars for like a single Paragon crystal or cap crystal over the course of 2 weeks that can easily be incorporated in a separate calendar and free up some space for somebody who has to keep an eye on those things. Side quests are being needlessly complicated. All of these special little solo objectives, all of these things were designed with a purpose and perhaps with a good idea in mind. But fact of the matter is now, in between champion abilities getting more and more complex, in between node descriptions getting longer and fights having more and more nodes, in between eventually having more and more game modes added, in between all of these things kind of getting built on, I don't think not Kabam as a company, but MCOC as a game has really cleaned house all that well. Reality is, there's at least half of the game that's criminally outdated and absolutely irrelevant. A lot of the solo events and the rewards in there, a lot of the rank rewards for that, a lot of smaller things in the game just need more attention, and all kind of needs leaning down a bit. We do not need 89 in-game currencies. We did not need this side quest store, for instance, and so on and so forth. So with that, I do think that potentially, also Netmarble or Kabam executives do see that and do plan on just, making MCOC more lean, which I think, number one, could be quite a good thing. Number two, obviously, as it's pointed out in this thread, gaming industry in general at the moment is not having its best time, with the world economy kind of being on the downturn, and that is visible everywhere. That's visible in my YouTube ad revenues and how many clicks per dollar or whatever YouTube's calculating. That's across the entire world. Prices are going up, the wages are not keeping the same pace, and people are being much more careful with what and where they spend money on. One of the most visible and noticeable things or industries that are on decline right now are, for instance, now the movie industry. Hardly any movie is struggling to turn a profit. There are quite a few reasons for that, which we're not going to go into the detail. But in general, even very good and enjoyable movies are not making, half the money, or are making 75% of the money they would have pre-COVID, for instance. And that is one of the things that, for instance, me kind of made paranoid during the COVID times as well, when I saw everything being shut down and all this money being thrown out by the world, effectively by all the world governments, because somebody's going to have to pay for it. Somebody's going to have to pay for the fact that nobody's working and generating and producing anything. And that somebody always eventually ends up being people. And when people has less money in overall to go around, entertainment is often what suffers the first. And undoubtedly, I would say that the money being spent on games and movies and entertainment in general being looked at a lot more tight by a very large population of people. Hey, myself including. Might have a bit different reasons for that too, but still, life's changing. So these companies do need to adjust. The last reason, and actually perhaps the most important, most straightforward, most logical one. Virtually in all of the massive companies, having these type of layoffs from people who have worked there a very long time are very common. And to explain it, very simple. When you apply for a job that has its listed wage at 50K a year, you're working there, you get your performance reviews, and you typically expect some sort of annual bonus, an annual wage increase. And if you're getting promotions in there, so on and so forth. So effectively, even without changing the job titles or getting any promotions, company hires you at 50K a year. Now, you do expect to get 52 or 55K in a couple of years. You do expect to get 60K a few years later down the line. You do expect to get 65 or 70K eventually. And Kabam Mike was with Kabam like 8 years. So he definitely has gone through quite a bit of wage increase for doing the job that he did. And that is normal. That's the common practice. That's what most of us expect in the work. That eventually our pay is going to go up. Because, inflation, everything else, you're doing a good job, you have proved yourself with the company, all that stuff. Company pays you more than they could somebody else, equally good, equally talented, if they hired them anew. So what happens in these companies is they frequently lay off employees that have been with them for a while that they think they can replace. Because they can list the same job that you're doing for, let's say, 80K a year. They can list it for 50,000 a year instead. And in the process, save themselves a lot of money. That is a very common practice in a lot of these companies and industries, in corporations and so forth. And if I had to guess, if Kabam Mike was laid off, that would be a big part of it. Whether it's fair, debatable. Whether it's an effective way for a lot of companies to, keep things active, keep things moving, and at the same time save a lot of money, absolutely. On top of all of it, combining all of these things that we just discussed or that I just listed for you guys, if the gaming industry is going through a rough time, which it is, and they are looking to, get rid of excess employees or perhaps to pay them less, it also means that there will be a lot of equally qualified people looking for that job and willing to potentially work for less. Because Kabam is not the only company laying off these people. So now it's effectively, as far as we can say, employers' market. They can be, less generous with their wage packages, and they can be more picky with who they hire. So ultimately, and this is again by no means any sort of discussion of Kabam Mike in his quality of work or anything else, but Kabam is doing, or Netmarble, if Kabam Mike got fired, doing the rational, pragmatic choice of likely reducing the money that they spend for the employee that they think they can effectively get cheaper. Now, that obviously purely speculation. I don't have any insider information, but that is kind of my take on it. This is life. It does suck when it happens to people we like. I have gone through stuff like that as well. But what's the best way to put it? Out of all of the issues with the game, I don't think this is where I'd put my rage in, I guess. Either way, let me know what is your take on this entire situation. And I look forward to hearing from you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about